What is up, YouTube? It's what Millsy, back hometown commander, back for another episode of Millsy Updates, the show where I bring you through my most recent updates to some of the decks in my main deck box and my test box for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Some of these decks that we've covered so far and are going to cover are very new. Some of them are old, but the point is we're updating them with the release of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Update these decks really about 3 times a year most of the time, after every set or two. But today we're going to talk about a commander that on first look I didn't really expect it to take me by surprise or be something I enjoyed, but to be honest, after playing it, I really like it. It's been a ton of fun to play. It has a fun kind of vibe to it. And I'll be 100% honest, it's probably the first deck that I've ever really, truly, consistently knocked somebody out with commander damage, which isn't something that I do very often. So, today we're talking about Morska, Undersea, Sleuth, a Bant 2/3 Vidalcan Fish Detective. It says you have no maximum hand size. Beginning your upkeep, investigate. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on Morska. Morska was the face commander of the Deep Blue Sea Precon for Murder's Carla Manor, a very recent release, but I've had so much fun with this deck. I chose to take the deck 2 ways, really. One was based on drawing that second card, or the amount of cards you draw on your turn, caring about when you draw, doing things when you draw. And the second was taking advantage of either making more clues or putting more counters on things. And we'll talk about that as we kind of get down the line, what I've baked into this deck. But the goal is to get Morska really big and threaten to end the game with people with Morska being very big, or just build up a board state to make it happen all around. As far as the second draw effects go, there's really only like 4 or 5 in the deck that I see somewhat consistently. And 4 out of the 5 of them came in the Precon. Alondra Sky Dreamer. Whenever you draw your second card, you make a Drake. Whenever you draw your 5th card each turn, it and all Drakes you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So a fun effect, you get the Drake every turn, and then if we take a big turn drawing a lot of cards, our Drakes can get big, and that is a great way to set up some value. Detective of the Month is one of my favorites. Ascend, as long as you have the city's blessing, detectives you control can't be blocked. That means that Morska cannot be blocked. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. That can be huge, making Morska unblockable, especially the bigger it gets. Ethereal Investigator. When it ETBs, we investigate X times, where X is the number of opponents we have. Whenever we draw our second card each turn, make a 1/1 spirit. What I like about these tokens that we're making when we're drawing these second cards is they're just great blockers for us. Because as it turns out, when you start getting 8, 10, 12 counters on Morska and you start throwing it at somebody, they're going to have to start figuring out what the heck they're going to do. And most of the time it's going to be hitting back. So we want to make sure that we've got ways to block. Draw Royale is a ton of fun. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you make a 2/2 cat. And then for 6 mana, we can turn all of our creatures' base power encompasses XX, where X is the number of cards in our hand. I've yet to use that ability, but I have made a few cats in my time with the deck so far. And then, probably arguably my favorite of them is Min, Wily Illusionist. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a 1/1 illusion token with this creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you have. Whenever illusion we control dies, you can put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. So the more illusions we get, the better chance we have to dump permanents from our hand into the battlefield, and that can be really darn good. Well, Morska makes a clue every turn, right? But we want to make other clues, because clues are a great way to draw a card, right? 2 mana to put into them to draw a card. Adrix and Nev comes in the Precon, and it's great because it's not only going to give us double clues every time we investigate, but all of those creatures that just made tokens when we draw our second card are going to get doubled. Erdwall Illuminator says whenever we investigate for the first time each turn, we investigate an additional time. Aloneness allows us to make a clue, investigate every time a non-token creature ETBs under our control, and we can sack some clues to take some things off the top of somebody else's deck, which is pretty cool, but mainly just getting more and more clues. Officious Interrogation can get us X investigates, where X is the number of total creatures. Any number of target players we pick control can make a lot of clues. Chemio's Journal is a great payoff for our clues. Not only do we get a clue at the start of our turn, but we can sack 3 clues to go get anything. And then Worldbreaker Helm, anytime we would make 1 or more artifact tokens, we make those and a map, and we can make a token's copy of target artifact we control. What I like about the Helm is the maps are really great for Morska, because they just help put more counters on Morska or other creatures and get us through our deck. We'll talk a teeny bit more about the importance of clues in a second. But let's talk about some token payoffs. So Essex is a pretty fun one. First time you would create one or more tokens during each of your turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Essex and create that many tokens that are a copy of that creature. Obviously, we want to avoid legendary creatures, right? Because the copies aren't set to be non-legendary. But there's a lot of creatures we wouldn't mind copying, especially some that can give our creatures really fun abilities, and we'll talk about more of them in a second. Jaheira gives all of our tokens the ability to tap for green mana. This is great with all our clues tapping for green. We're also playing Urza in the deck to have all of them tap for blue as well. Junkwinder, whenever a token comes into our control, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Junkwinder can help us tap down our opponent's really important things and stop them from using them on the next turn and really help us out. Merchant of Truth is one we wouldn't mind copying with that Essex effect. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we investigate, but it says clues we control have Exalted, which says whenever a creature we control attacks alone, that creature gets +1 till end of turn for each instance of Exalted among permanents you control. This is very good for Morska because, especially we can make Morska unblockable, it's going to want to attack alone to hit somebody potentially if we have a bunch of Exalted out and can deal massive damage to somebody. I just recently got Exalted on 6 or 7 clues I had laying around, which put Morska up above the threshold of commander damage and knocked somebody out. And then two of my favorite support creatures in the deck, because you kind of don't expect them until you see them start working, are Rosy Cotton and Yoshin Dissident. Both these have very similar ability. For Rosy, it's whenever you create a token, and for Yoshin, it's whenever an artifact comes in under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Rosy, of course, is other than Rosy, but these are great to grow Morska up more, get it ready to go. It's also great to just start growing another creature to be a threat as well. Rosy gets a food on ETB, which helps you get one of her triggers automatically, whereas Yoshin just has something else. But both of these actually can go pseudo-infinite with a card we're going to talk about in 2 slides. To finish up our token payoffs, Idol of Oblivion can draw us a card every time we made a token. This is really great with Morska because Morska makes that clue at the start of our turn. Then we can tap Idol of Oblivion to draw that second card and without having to spend any mana to crack a clue. Nettle Cyst is a great way to just buff a creature for the number of artifacts and enchantments we control. Remember, when we're stacking clues up, is going to be a lot of them. And then Mechanized Production is a way to potentially end the game. We attach it to an artifact we control. Most of the time, that's going to be a clue. Getting your upkeep, make a token that's a copy of it. And if we control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, we win the game. So pretty easy if we start stacking clues up. We run the risk of ending the game right there if our opponents can't deal with Mechanized Production or the amount of clues we have. Well, the two things that we talked about on the last slide about going infinite, both of them can go pseudo-infinite with Lonus, Genetics Expert, because of its 2 abilities. Mainly the first one, whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Lonus, we investigate that many times. When we're investigating, you make a clue, meaning it can effectively go as big as we want to with either of those, Yoshin or Rosy Cotton, making Lonus absolutely huge. And then when you sack a clue, we can put a counter on another creature. We can actually put those counters on Morska if we want to. Danny Pink has a great ability. Whenever one or more counters are put on each creature we control for the first time each turn, we draw a card. Piper Wright can put a counter on a creature we control whenever we sacrifice a clue. So again, if we're sacrificing clues to get to those draw triggers, we're getting these abilities. Profs at the start of combat on our turn is going to put X +1/+1 counters on a creature where X is the number of cards we've drawn this turn -1. So the more cards we draw, the better it is. And then Simic Ascendancy, another alternate win con. Whenever counters go on a creature, we put that many growth counters on Simic, and when it gets to 20 at the start of our upkeep, we win the game. Just another way, if Morska gets dealt with, we have these other ways to potentially cheekily get in. But okay, we get Morska, we get in big, we put counters, but how do we get in for damage? We already talked about Detective of the Month making it unblockable. There's so many other ways to deal with it. Dustshell Crawler can give all creatures we control the +1/+1 on it, counter on it, trample, so Morska's going to have trample. Martha Jones, whenever we sack a clue, it and up to one other creature can't be blocked this turn. We're going to pick Morska. Canine, we can tap for 1 in a blue to make legendary creature not be able to be blocked this turn, and it also will give Morska Ward 1 when it's untapped. Private Eye, whenever we draw our second card each turn, target detective can't be blocked. This turn, Sarah Peacock turns all artifacts we control into clues, and whenever we sack a clue, target creature can't be blocked this turn. And then Idolize, working very similar to that Merchant of Truth effect, just giving the enchanted creature +X till end turn, where X is the number of non-land permanents we control if it attacks alone, which, again, if Morska can be unblockable, we'll happily let it attack alone to get these effects. Let's talk about the kind of updates we've done to the deck. I think we start to see a snapshot, but the truth is, this time around, I really started to understand what Exalted could do for the deck. So Idolize came in from the Fallout decks. World's Waker Realm came in from OTJ. It just seems like a great card, especially because those maps can put a +1/+1 counter on Morska or another creature and help thin through the deck. If you find a land and put it in your hand, it isn't counted as drawing, but that's okay. You're still pushing through your deck. K9 for more unblockability. For Morska, it's something that I realized over time that Morska can be very good at getting in unblocked. Same thing with that Private Eye. If we can make Morska unblockable, we can end the game potentially even quicker. Thousand Mood Smithy is a way to potentially go wide. When it comes in, we make a Gnome Soldier that's an XX, where X is the number of artifacts and or creatures we control, and at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, we can tap 5 of them and transform it. And then the backside is land, where if we tap it for mana and use it to cast a permanent, we get another one of those Gnome Soldiers. Again, that's just a way to go a little bit wide, put some more threats on the board. And then Clever Concealment just to protect the board. I think I already have Heroic Intervention in the deck, but I wanted some more ways to protect our entire board and not just Morska. Because the entire board is important most of the time when we get it really set up. But just like we talk about all the time in our Millsy Brew series, no deck is ever done. In fact, this was a pretty big update, 6 or 7 cards, and I still don't think the deck's done. I still think I have 3. I still think I have things to learn. These are 3 cards that I think could be good adds to the deck, and I'm going to be thinking about as I do more testing. Astrid Peth from Doctor Who says when it comes in or attacks, make a food. Whenever we sacrifice a clue or food, it explores, which just is a way to put more counters on it, potentially turn it into its own threat. Lavinia, whenever you cast your second spell, each turn you investigate, and you can tap for 2 colorless, but only during an opponent's turn, again, to crack maybe one of our clues during our opponent's turns for some more draw. Then Peregrine Took seems like a cool idea. Whenever you make one or more tokens under your control, make that many plus a food, and you can sack 3 foods, draw a card. Again, if given enough tokens we're making and enough foods we have, we could be hitting that second draw each turn just on sacrificing foods, which feels like a good idea. I just need to see kind of where I'd want to put it in over something else. But let's get into our playtest here. We're keeping a 3-lander with Lowness and a Clever Concealment. We do have the ability to play Morska on turn 3, which is always what we want to do. Kind of awkward with that Glacial Fortress and that Hinterland Harbor, so we're going to put the Glacial Fortress in first. Again, we would have loved to land with a type there to be able to have these come in untapped. They come in tapped, and that's okay. Nothing to do turn 1. Turn 2, Simic Ascendancy, but again, not that big of a deal. We'll just go ahead and put the Hinterland Harbor in tap this turn. Again, nothing for 1 mana, perfectly okay. Turn 3, we'll get the Wooden Bastion down. Green goes in for green and a white, and a blue there to get Morska down. I always find you want to get Morska down as quickly as possible. Just to make sure you start making those clues and getting ourselves put down the right path. So at the start of this turn, we would get our clue and draw for a turn. Get that Flooded Grove down, so we're at 4 mana. We could get the Erdwall down. We could get the Erdwall and the Simic Ascendancy down, which wouldn't be a bad idea. We could get Erdwall down and then crack that clue for the counters on Morska. We could mechanize production the clue. We could get Lowness down, who's pretty great as well. I like Lowness a lot, and it's a card that can start really growing our board. I'm not quite sure here. I see there's a lot of pretty decent lines. I think I would probably get Erdwall and the Simic Ascendancy down here. Just start to kind of grow our presence. Make sure that as we start putting counters on Morska, we present an alternate threat. Leave that clue around. We can always sacrifice 1 next turn. So here we make another clue with Morska's ability, but Erdwall says whenever we investigate twice. We're actually going to get 2 clues, so we're up to 3. 4 mana on board. I really like Jaheira here, because now these immediately turn into green sources that we can use right away. And I think I would probably go these 3 for Jaheira, leave the white up, And I would just probably go ahead and get a mechanized production down on one of the clues. It feels odd. I think we could also just sack one of the clues to draw a card and get the chain with Morska running as well, right? For our 4 mana, we could also just get Lonus down and get Lonus set up as well for next turn. I don't hate that idea, getting Lonus down and getting it started up, because it can start really getting clues down and getting other things down. You know, let's stick with the mechanized production. That was my first idea, and let's do it. So our next turn, we would make 2 copies of it because of Erdwall, and then we would make another one because of the production. Now we're at 6 clues. We're darn close to winning the game if no one can disrupt us. Junkwinder coming down for 2 mana at this point is something we could do. I like the idea of Lonus here just to get it down and get it started. We could still then Junkwinder if we want to. The cool part is we can tap the clues for mana to sack another clue. Like, the odd part of this game is we have yet to really get a counter on Morska, but at the end of the day, we still want to, you know, get our board state kind of rocking, right? We still want to get it set up. I like the Lonus for 3. Then I probably would just Junkwinder for 2 mana since it has the affinity for tokens. That would set Lonus off, giving it a counter. And when it does, we would investigate again, making another clue. That would trigger Junkwinder to tap something down. And then, so that was my 4 mana there. I'd probably tap 2 of them to sack one of them to draw a card, just to make sure we trigger Morska, getting 2 counters on it. Lonus is going to go off whenever we sacrifice a clue. We can put a counter on target creature you control. Another target creature you control. I like the idea of, again, putting it on Morska. Start making it be a blocker here. We still have some extra green mana up. I would probably take a swing at somebody with Morska. The only argument, I guess, well, we don't have that. I would say the only other argument to maybe not would be keep up a white source for clever concealment, but I don't think we have it at this point. I think we would just take a swing with Morska, maybe tap 2 to 3 visits. Just go and get something like Spar's Headquarters and get an extra land in. Start of our turn, we would investigate twice because of Morska, and then mechanized production would go off and win this game, again, as long as nobody's dealt with it. Again, if they did deal with it, we just have 8 clues, and now we can, you know, deal with other effects, but, you know, let's just leave it there and move into Playtest 2. Playtest 2 showing a 3-lander Kappa Cannoneer is pretty cool. The Investigator for another second draw spell, draw effect, and Sender Peacock, not too bad. Turn 1 we see an Arcane Signet, okay. I guess we get the Sandbar down. I like sometimes leaving the cycling lands up in case we want to use them later. But I think I'm okay to just do that. Get the Flood Grove down. Get the Arcane Signet down. That way we have access to more mana next turn. Here in turn 3 with the Deserted Beach, I mean, we can't do multiple things, so I think I'd rather just do the Morska here. Just to get it started for the next turn. So the next turn we make a clue. Draft turn, Ajax and Nev is pretty great. Wouldn't be a bad use of our turn. Erdwall Investigator wouldn't be a bad use of our turn, because we would get 3 more clues. Ajax and Nev would just get us more clues. Merchant of Truth would be a good way to start setting up our opponents getting hit. We could crack a clue, but I don't know that I see that here. We could like Nature's Lore and crack a clue. Maybe that could be something fun. So we'll Nature's Lore first. I'd probably go get probably just Spar's Headquarters again. No reason not to just get the Triumph when you can. And then we'll just crack the clue to draw a card, put the 2 counters on Morska, maybe take an attack if we can. Now we're up to 5 mana. Draw here, we would go up to 6 mana with Trevor's Ruins, but we'll deal with that in a second. We would have 4, 5, 6 mana with the Ruins. Now the Ruins, we do have to bounce a land back, but that's okay. We can tap the land for mana before we put the Ruins down. But effectively at 6 mana, I like Adrix and Nev. I like Sender Peacock a lot because it can start giving us unblockable. I do like the idea of Ajax and Nev because we can start making more clues. But I think I'm going to do the Investigator here first. This is going to make us a another 3 clues in the space that we're playing against 3 opponents. Play the ruins down. I'd probably pick up that sandbar because we could potentially cycle it now to draw another card. We would have 2 mana left, the Trevor's Ruins and probably the Arcane Signet. I don't really see anything else I'd want to do for 2. So I'd probably just leave it up. We could always draw a clue on somebody else's turn, but we'll just come back to our next turn. Start of our turn, right? Morska gets us another clue. I love the look of Michiko's here, giving Morska +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment we control. I wish we had a way to give. Wish we had a great way to give Morska unblockable this turn and get Michiko's down, but Peacock plus Michiko's would be 7 instead of the 5 that we have available, and then we could get the lonely sandbar untapped. Kind of like the idea of we could just get the sandbar in. Probably Merchant of Truth. Remember that, or I think maybe Adrix. Remember, Merchant of Truth doesn't need to. It doesn't need to attack or do anything to give something exalted. We could just play it next turn after we make a couple more. Adrix would never be 4, so we wouldn't have to mana to crack a clue. Maybe we just try to get in with Morska if we can. This turn, Hinterland Harmer comes in untapped, so we have 7 mana. This could be a good. I guess we really want the unblockability, right? But we get two clues this turn, right? Because of Adrix and Neb doubling up on them. If I get Merchant of Truth down, Morska is now attacking as a 10/11. If only there was a cheap way to give it unblockability. If I get Peacock down, I can't get Morska unblockable, but I could set up for the next turn. So the question becomes, do I set up the Exalted or the unblockability first? I guess we'll set up the unblockability first. Everything becomes a clue. We'll crack a clue to draw. Get the 1/1 Spirit. Make Morska unblockable. Give it a couple more counters. And now Morska can just attack in free somewhere this turn. Get in for some damage. Start, deal 6 to somebody. And then I think next turn we have the perfect chance to get Merchant of Truth and Michiko's down. And then that would be 6. And Dreamroot Cascade would be the perfect amount of mana to crack a clue, give us unblockable, and probably dome somebody for, 6? Let's play it out, because this is a point where the game can be really beneficial. So Adrix makes us 2 clues, right? Instead of 1 for Morska's first ability. Draw for turn, Dreamroot Cascade. Then I would go ahead and Merchant of Truth for 4. We have 4 left. Michiko's for 2, targeting Morska. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, and then Senator makes all of them clues. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Or sorry, that's right. The artifacts no matter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. So that brings Morska up to 9 plus 6 would be 15, and then we crack one of the clues with for Senator Peacock to draw, get 2 more counters on it. It would get 1 less. Now it's unblockable. Swing in unblockable, so it's 14. So it's 16. It would get exalted and be now commander damage on someone, and then now all we got to do is just continue to try to protect it. And it, and ram through. And if somebody removes it, it's okay. We either put it back or find some other way to use the clues, cap a cannoneer, or get something else down. But again, I like the board state. I think it fits us towards where we want to be. But let me know, what do you think of Morska down in the comment section below. This is a deck, of course, I did cover previously on the channel, but it's a deck I've had a lot of fun with, especially seeing some of the unblockabilities. Things like the 3rd Doctrine is kind of like an alternate big attacker, +1/+1 for each non-creature token you control. Again, Urza there to help with the mana. But let me know what you think, and I will catch you guys next time.